Transhumanism is what the elites are really trying to achieve. And what is that? Transhumanism is basically just using technology to transcend the biological confines of our humanity. It's based in human evolution, and it essentially posits that part of human evolution is our technological advancement. We've got as smart as we can, we're as biologically developed as we can without the implementation of technology. Well, now, in order to further our evolution, we need to implement technology. So it's Darwinian at the core, and it's Nietzschean in its philosophy, in that Nietzsche was obsessed with creating the Ubermensch because he denied God, but still had that inborn desire to become a god. And so, how do you do that? Well, you just make yourself into a god through guided evolution, is essentially what they call it. So, what does that sound like to you? I'm going to read this quote. And there are more. Actually, I've got a whole list of quotes. I'll start with this one. This is from a. This is from Ian Morris, professor of classics and history at Stanford University. Ian Morris says genetic testing already offers parents the option of aborting fetuses predisposed to undesirable shortcomings, and as we get better at switching specific genes on and off, designer babies may become an option. Why take a chance on nature's lottery when a little tinkering can give you the baby you want? Because, some say, eugenics, whether driven by racist maniacs such as Hitler or by consumer choice, is wrong. All this talk of transcending biology is merely playing God. To that, Craig Venter, who's a leading transhumanist, says, we're not playing. We're not playing God. We are God. And that is the bent of transhumanism. So, what does that have to do with our global elites? Well, they share that view, and they're trying to manifest their apotheosis, their transition from human, their humanity into godhood. So, a lot of these people, they come from, let's look at Bush and Kerry, both coming out from the same secret society, Skull and Bones of Yale. And not just those two. That's just one that's very glaring and impossible to deny because it's irrefutable. It's they've acknowledged it. So that's the one I point to. But so these globalists come from these secret societies, and they are occultists, and they worship ancient Babylonian deities. It's just what they do. It's who they are. So they follow this mystery religion, which encompasses the ancient Babylonians and the ancient Egyptians. Hence, why we see that iconography on our own currency and references to those faiths. And they believe that they descend from the gods. And part of it now, the Christian explanation for this is that, at least by my reckoning, I know that there's some Christians disagree, but that the Watchers, the fallen angels, came down to intermingle with the human women. That created this Nephilim offspring. These were demigods. So this would be reflective of, say, Hercules, a human god hybrid. That's kind of what the Nephilim are. So many disparate cultures believe the same thing. It's just dressed up in different terms. So there's this union between the gods and man. It creates a certain kind of hybrid race, which then begins to consume humanity, and the creator then destroys the world, usually in most tellings in a flood, a cataclysmic flood. And I mean, you understand the reference. So these elitists believe more in the Atlantean interpretation of that. And in Atlantis, at least this is my understanding. Um, could be wrong. People who know more could maybe tell you differently. But in fact, through my books here, I would point you to this if you want to know more about it. The uh, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne. He can go into greater depth for you. But essentially, the rulers of Atlantis were 10 giant kings, all twins, and which is interesting because in the biblical account, the Nephilim are giants. That's what Goliath was, a descendant of the original Nephilim giants. And so it's interesting too that I got to really look into this more because it's interesting to me, but I haven't done a lot of work to verify it. I believe Hillary Clinton in the WikiLeaks expressed interest in locating the tomb of Gilgamesh because they have this interest in these ancient deities who they believe themselves to descend from. Just like the pharaohs were thought to be gods, and these ancient Chinese rulers were thought to be gods. They think themselves to be gods as well. Well, I think they really seek to achieve this apotheosis, this I guess this transcendence into godhood through transhumanism, likely by fusing their own DNA with whatever DNA they can salvage from Nephilim remains. And there have been several that have been found. And I've got a few. Got to dig for them, sorry. Compiled in this. There's so many. There's so many articles like this of these giant humanoids being discovered. I think it's coming through for you backwards anyway, so it doesn't matter whether it's backwards or upside down. But these are all real articles of these gigantic beings being unearthed. And there's not just tens, there's not just hundreds, there's in excess of 1,500 officially documented cases of these things being discovered. And when they are discovered, they conveniently disappear. So who is after them? Well, I think who's after them is these elitists who are focused on uh, manifesting their godhood. They see themselves as superior, and I think that may be part of this whole transhumanist push. So when you hear these transhumanists say that we're not playing God, we are God, um, this goes back to that old ancient lie, the original lie. Don't worry about eating the fruit. God just doesn't want you to do it because once you do, you'll know the difference between good and evil and you will be as gods. That was the lie, the original deception. And we're seeing history repeat itself again. We see it also in a lot of newfangled spins on faith. If your belief system um, entails you being God or a goddess, then I might rethink that because that has some associations with some pretty nefarious agendas. I'm not going to tell. Well, yeah, I guess I did just tell you what to believe. I'm just saying what I would do. I would rethink it. There's a lot of deceptive religions out there that sound legitimate and just pull you into the same old lie that you're really a god. What did Hitler believe? Why was he trying to create the Ubermensch? It wasn't just to create super soldier. It was Nietzsche's Ubermensch, the God man. That's what he was going for. So you see it, this kind of inherent evil behind transhumanist philosophy, and they would argue that it is benevolent. It's a good thing because what transhumanism seeks to do is utilize primarily artificial intelligence and or um, genome sequencing, which has shown a lot of advancement in recent years in the introduction of CRISPR technology. And so it's gone some scary places lately. It was already a thing. Dolly was cloned decades ago. Um, a fully functional organism, a fully functional sheep. And again, that was decades ago. Well, we had in 2009 the Human Animal Hybrid Prohibition Act, uh, and that has just been negated a couple weeks ago. They decided, let's go ahead and move forward with human animal hybrids. And I've heard it said, and not verified it, but um, a four-star general, and I even got the name too. This was on InfoWars, and if you've heard that's an illegitimate site with illegitimate information, it's because you heard that from the mainstream media mouthpieces, probably wanting to divert you from it. But Alex Jones had said the name of the general. It was just on a show recently too. One of his recent shows, who had stated he had clearance and actually saw some of these human animal hybrids, and super disturbing, super sad, not like clearly a satanic operation they have going on there. But of course, it will be presented as something that is benevolent and good and even godly, because with the advancement of CRISPR gene editing software and even AI, probably AI wouldn't factor as much in this regard, but um, we could possibly maybe create um, nanobots that could repair cellular damage as soon as it occurred. Or we could bring sight to the blind. We could make the lame walk. Sound familiar? Transhumanist philosophy is essentially a replacement for Christ. And a main thrust of transhumanism is ultimately to achieve the fountain of youth. They want to achieve immortality. And I think that when science advances to such a degree that people will have within their grasp the ability to add more years onto their lifespan by the hundreds, and you have people like Christians saying, don't do that. That's going to lead to a really bad place. I know it sounds good, but it's real dark. We need to fight this with everything we have. They're going to be looked at as terrorists, um, keeping you from immortality. So something like that would certainly create a scenario where um, people will not, when it's suggested that they're just all killed, it's not going to be resisted whatsoever. So we're definitely headed in that direction, at least according to ancient scriptures. Um, we'll probably see that eventually. I don't know if you or I will, but a a culling of these people who are interfering with human evolution, with the expansion of years. And this is not just a crazy Christian Bill idea. This is from leading transhumanists. This is from secular people. This is from Hugo de Garis, Dr. de Garis, who is, I mean, he's got an IQ probably double mine, and a leading figure in this, but skeptical of it and not really pro transhuman. But he agrees. He says the same thing is happening. According to Ray Kurzweil, probably the leading transhumanist, what we're seeing is a technology boom. So um, we've got uh, we've got technology not going on a steady incline, but especially with the introduction of CRISPR, we've got it going like exponential growth. It's really rocketing toward um, what he considers this inevitable transhuman end game. And so the question is whether to embrace that or reject it. And I've got a lot of articles here. I don't know. I don't have time to go through all of them probably. But so here's what's going on. This is 10 years ago, too, by the way. So, yeah, September 23rd, 2011. Um, there's a list of a few things here. Genetic engineering, in which the traits of different individuals or animals are combined, already has resulted in amazing combinations such as the Mayo Clinic's recent development, bioluminescent cats marked with glowing jellyfish genes, who are also resistant to feline AIDS, thanks to virus-resilient DNA from a monkey. That sounds great. We can solve AIDS. Two final techniques raise basic questions of human identity. Human-animal chimerism, in which the cells of a human are mixed with cells of another mammal for the purpose of curing a disease in the human, and reproductive xenotransplant, which involves placing a fertilized embryo of one species into the uterus of another species. While parental genetic choices should always be limited by the best interests of the child, he says, processes and technologies that result in healthy or healthier children are intrinsically good and should be embraced, not feared. So no matter what, this is good. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. It's intrinsically good because I decided that it is, and we need to embrace it no matter what. Well, there's different kind of gene editing. There is, I think, germline is the dangerous one, where um, you can edit an organism, and that stays within the organism, or you can edit an organism that is then transferable. So, um, say Joe Schmo gets edited, and he reproduces. Now his offspring also have that same edit, and they'll pass it down to their offspring. So obviously, this opens up a huge can of worms that can't be put back once. And the fact is, these arrogant idiots, they don't know what the end result is going to be. They can't foresee the detriment of any of this. It sounds very good. It sounds like this is going to be humanity's way out of death and disease and pain, but it's not. Um, I don't see that being successful, and it leads to the question of what really is humanity, what constitutes humanity, and at what point do you lose it? Is it when you are infused with 20% porcine genes, or if your DNA becomes 40% bovine, or once you're 60% whatever jellyfish, I guess they're messing with now. Is that when you lose your humanity? Um, one consideration is that, and I'd have to find the legislation, but but this is in the works. They are talking about it. They're asking just those questions. And my understanding is that if you have a certain percentage of non-human DNA introduced into your body, then you no longer have rights as a human. Um, which of course becomes important for them to carry out their sick experimentation underground, which, I mean, it's just common sense that that's occurring, right? They didn't just clone Dolly and then leave it alone. Of course, they immediately rushed into human applications, and that's been going on for years now. There's just no way around it. It's the damn it, I always forget what it's called. It's like the technological inevitability thesis, or hypothesis, or something like that, where once a technology is introduced, what follows is the inevitable development of that technology. Well, what do you think we're doing after we cloned Dolly back in the 80s or 90s, and saw that we can actually do that? Do you really think that that didn't immediately transfer into human experimentation? Of course it did. And so, who knows what's going on underground? According to certain 3-star, 4-star generals who have insight into some of this stuff, it's not good. Oh, also that guy's dead now, so imagine whether that happened from natural causes. I would assume not. Um, so that's, I guess that's the transhumanist problem in a nutshell. It's very seductive. It sounds like the solution to all our problems, and I think we have to take into consideration certain phrases like when we have a ancient scripture who has made prophetic claims and those claims have come to pass, then that scripture has validated itself as reliable. So when the Bible says, during these times, men will seek death and be unable to find it, that scares me a little. How would that happen? I always wonder, is there no water for them to drown themselves in? Are there no cliffs to jump off of? How do you want to die but you can't? Well, if you've got nanotechnology that repairs cellular damage as soon as it occurs, that might be one way. I think transhumanism is how that occurs. Here's some transhumanist quotes. Former Pfizer VP says, "Your government is lying to you in a way that could lead to your death." William Blum said basically the same thing. Okay, that's not a transhumanist quote. I don't know why it's on there. But this does factor in. Blum said that no matter how paranoid or conspiracy minded you are, what the government is actually doing is worse than you can imagine. What is worse than you can imagine? Um, Literal human beings, a human soul being trapped in a pig or a goat or something like that. That's getting close to worse than I can imagine. Here's one from, I won't tell you who it's from. I'll just read the quote. "Frankly, I had thought that at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want too many of." There's that inherent racism in transhumanism and anything grounded in Darwinian evolution. That was from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Here's another one. "In order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day." That was from Jacques Cousteau, beloved celebrity oceanographer. These are really more depopulation quotes. Oh, well, I'll read them anyway. They're interesting. "A cancer is an uncontrolled multiplication of cells. The population explosion is an uncontrolled multiplication of people. We must shift our efforts from the treatment of symptoms to the cutting out of the cancer." So basically, humans are a cancer that need to be destroyed. "The operation will demand many apparently brutal and heartless decisions." That was from Paul Ehrlich. Here's another one. "There's a single theme behind all our work. We must reduce population levels. Either governments do it our way, through nice, clean methods, or they will get the kinds of mess we have in El Salvador or in Iran or Beirut. Once population is out of control, it requires authoritarian government, even fascism, to reduce it." That was Thomas Ferguson, former U.S. State Department official. And from Bill Gates, "The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's heading up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 to 15%. That's that famous TED Talk. And Kissinger, "Depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the third world." I'm going to change that. Those are depopulation quotes, not transhumanism quotes. But at any rate, they're essentially one and the same. They want to eradicate as many people as they can so that those that are left get to reap the benefits, what they consider to be benefits of their own apotheosis, their ascension to godhood, to be as the pharaohs in their own ancient mystery religion, who they revered as gods. And they're the special ones too. They're special than all of us cattle that need to be eradicated. They're more special than us. So they're going to achieve this ascension through technology. And I believe that is the goal. So, lot of these articles, no chance of getting through them. But transhumanism and these genetic chimeras, this is not mythological. It's not speculation. Um, it's not made up. The There have been organisms that have been extinct organisms resurrected in the fashion of Jurassic Park. The Pyranian ibex had been extinct for a while, but they discovered some soft tissue. They tapped into that DNA and used it to reconstruct the organism. They've done similar things uh, with other organisms as well. I don't have the info in front of me, but this is a real science. It sounds like it's science fiction, but it's not fiction. This is something that they are going to seek to normalize, which they have done. Have you seen Sweet Tooth on Netflix? That's about a. I wonder if I probably don't have it on here, but I did talk about it before. Maybe it's in here. Um, so this is basically propaganda, which is all you ever get on television anymore. This is why I got rid of Netflix. But I saw one episode of this. So Sweet Tooth. Um, the premise is that there's a virus and there's a lot of riots. The world is getting destroyed. Simultaneously, hybrids emerge, and they're hated because they're different. Poor hybrids. And the whites are evil and they want to kill the hybrids, and the blacks are good and want to protect them. So we see these same the race riots that are going on, this pandemic that we're supposed to be in the middle of. Um, they've really set the stage to reflect reality. And Sweet Tooth is a human animal hybrid. So kind of backing the premise, nature got angry at humanity for taking from the earth. And so it made the virus to save the poor earth from the dirty humans. And when you look at things like the Georgia Guidestones, which is an occult monument, a globalist monument, that says that humans need to be brought down to a population of 500 million, I think is the number they give. So that would warrant massive extermination in order to get to that number. And live in harmony with nature. Leave room for nature, it says. So, always with the extinction of humanity is this idea that it's for the betterment of nature. It's these tree hugging earth worshippers. You can see that philosophy undergirding a lot of this depopulation agenda. So, just thought that was interesting. So they're already starting, like I said, they're normalizing this idea of hybrids. And I don't know when they're going to roll that out. It's happening underground almost as a matter of certainty. But when when transhumanism is presented to you, and they're going to tell you that pain in your back that can go away. You want your hearing back? We'll make that happen. Um, you don't want to die when you're 80 or 90 or 100 or 150. We can lengthen those telomeres, and that's going to add on an additional 100 years to your lifespan. It will be seductive, and it's going to sound good. My opinion is that it's going to require the forfeiture of your humanity. And if you forfeit your humanity, then you will be beyond salvation in a spiritual sense. And you want to achieve technological salvation, which is fake salvation. And really, here's another thing before I finish. This gives no thought to your quality of life, really. That whole, we're going to make all your ailments disappear. I think that's only ostensible. But as far as the achievement of lengthening one's lifespan, doesn't really give much thought to what's the quality of life going to be. So what if you live for 1,000 years, but it's 1,000 years of misery because that thing that you lost is something that they couldn't quantify. You now have a dead spirit, and now you know what it's like to live for 1,000 years with a dead spirit. That's probably not going to be a cool experience. But I think we're going to achieve that eventually. That is the trajectory. That's not my crazy opinion. It is the opinion of leading transhumanists. It's the opinion of some of the smartest people in the world and the people responsible for the greatest technological innovation that the world has ever seen. That's what they think. So it's not just my dumbass throwing that out there like, hey, I think we're going to live in this whole sci fi fantasy. That's the kind of stuff that's coming out of their own mouths. So it's something to be aware of.